Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Inman, and today I'm here to read to you The Relatives Came by Cynthia Ryland, and it is a Caldecott Honor book. That means it was a runner-up to the award for picture books, and the pictures were by Stephen Gamble. And when you think about a picture book, sometimes you think it's just for the kindergartners or first graders. Yes, they would like this book, but really it's written on a 4th grade level, and so this goes along perfectly with the AMI packet for Reach, if you're doing that for 3rd through 5th grade, but anyone can listen, of course. In our Reach packet, we are really focusing on family, and that's what this book is focusing on. So I hope you enjoy the book. And then after, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions for you to think about the story and what was happening. And I'm going to pause for a few seconds, but then if you want to really talk about it with your friends or your family, you can actually stop the video after I've asked the question, and then I'll do a little discussion with you. All right, if you're ready, we're going to get started. The Relatives Came. This is a story by Cynthia Ryland. It was the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and up they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and the different mountains. They thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. So they drank up their pop and they ate up all their crackers, and they traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. And then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. And then it was time to go into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front door. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in 2s and 3s through the house. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was a good thing, since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. Their relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. They ate up our strawberries and melons, then promised we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy eating, hugging, and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests, and they headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and we waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet, and we fell asleep. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about the next summer. And that's the end of our book.